Hello everybody, thanks for tuning in to this YouTube battle report. This one has been voted upon by my patrons. It's going to be Dwarfs vs Undead, a 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy battle report. Two 1500 points armies, a little bit over, around 1570 points. And these two armies I am currently building up to a higher points value. They are both part of two challenges that I am participating in. The Dwarf Army is part of the Tale of Fort Gamers, hosted by Dave Gilson in the Warhammer 4th Edition Facebook group. The backstory of this army is that the General Odok Runebelt, he is going to march upon his ancestral hold, and in this process he is gathering a small force that is slowly growing. More and more dwarves are deciding to join in. He's going to reclaim his ancestral hold. So these are Odok's reclaimers, and they are facing off against the army I am currently building for the Call of the Crown 3 challenge, a painting challenge that I organized together with Joshua from the Crown of Command podcast. This army is based upon the White Dwarf 217 battle report of Undead versus Beastmen. The army by Heinrich Kemmler, the army is led by Heinrich Kemmler, and the backstory for this is that Kemmler is somewhere in a forest in the Empire. He wants to do something nefarious, it doesn't specify what exactly. And in this forest there are also beastmen. The beastmen are rampaging through the Empire, and the Imperial forces are have therefore decided to take out the beastmen. But getting those Imperial forces so close to Kemmler's lair, he can't have that. So Kemmler takes upon himself to take out the beastmen so that the Imperials will leave him alone and he can do whatever it is he is doing in peace. Now this Undead army I have already built to around 1500 points, but that is with too many characters. I started working on the characters and then later on progressed to the units. Now, in order to make this a legal army, I have had to cheat a little bit. I currently have a unit of 26 skeleton warriors and then some on my painting table, but they are not finished. So I have to substitute in some skeletons I painted earlier for my Tomb King's army, because those are the ones with hand weapon and shield. So, if you see some Tomb King skeletons standing there in between all those undead units with green bases and the Tomb Kings on the brown bases, I'm sorry for the aesthetic, but, well, that's just the way the situation is at the moment. If you want to see the full battle report, I can direct you to my Patreon page. The Forces of Fantasy Patreon page is non-tiered, meaning you can join for as little or as much as you like. Now, before we head off into the old world, I'd also like to give you a little bit of an opportunity. If you want to play these awesome earlier editions and you want to keep playing them, even though we have now Warhammer the Old World and you also want to play Warhammer the Old World, then I have good news for you, because there are some base adapters. If you're anything like me, then by now you have amassed several Warhammer armies totaling hundreds of miniatures. Because you still want to play those old armies in earlier editions, and because it takes a lot of time, there is no way you're going to rebase all of those goblins, skeletons, clan rats and whatnot. Fortunately, I have an ideal solution for you. If you go to my website forcesoffantasy.com, at the top right corner you will find an affiliate link to warfactor.eu. On this website you can find all sorts of base adapters, movement trays and spacers that you can use to easily upgrade your miniatures from their old trusted base sizes to the new ones for use in Warhammer the Old World. If you use this link on my website, a small percentage of your order will flow back towards the Forces of Fantasy podcast. So if you would like to support the show, then this is a great way to both get your armies Old World ready and to show your support for the Forces of Fantasy podcast. Go to forcesoffantasy.com, click the affiliate link and order all the stuff you need to get your armies ready for Warhammer the Old World. Happy wargaming! Let's start by discussing the table. I rolled a random terrain piece for each of the table quarters that resulted in 2 woods and 1 regular hill, that's over there with the undead, and over here on this side there is 1 steep hill for the dwarves. I randomly rolled who is going to deploy on which side, and then I randomly rolled who is going to deploy first. That was the undead. The undead and the dwarves deployed. They both have the same number of drops, so undead get to choose, undead get +1 to see who gets to start first. Let's do that now. White die for the dwarves and the black die for the undead. The dwarves win the roll-off, so they get to decide who goes first. I think they will let the undead go first. Let's go over the armies here. Going to start over here on this side. This is a unit of dwarf warriors. This is the Dragon Company, led by Brom Grindal, who is the champion. In the unit is also Odok, my general, and Sigurd, the battle standard bearer. They are equipped with the following. Odok has a great weapon, heavy armor, a rune of stone and a rune of resistance. Sigurd, the battle standard bearer, has a heavy armor with and the battle standard has the master rune of Stromny Redbeard. The Dragon Company has 2 times the rune of battle on their standard, and the champion has no magic items. The next one is the Griffin Company. They are led by Stealthy Gags, the champion. He's over here, looking the wrong way I see. And they also have a hero in the unit, Grum Hafnisson. They are equipped. Grum has a rune of cutting, he has a heavy armor with a rune of stone, and the standard bearer has 3 times the rune of battle. Then over here we have Turdex troopers, 10 crossbowmen, no champion, but they do have a standard and a musician, and they all have great weapons and shields as well. The standard bearer has a rune of slowness on it. Then we have over here J.S. Bang and his organ gun. They have a rune of fortune, and here the Barbecue Brothers with their flame cannon, and they have no runes at all. Then on the other side of the table we have a unit of skeleton warriors. These are the 6th edition Tomb King skeletons, because, well, the 4th edition skeletons I'm currently working on, they're still on the painting table, they were not finished in time for this battle report. They are led by Lord Kelleck, the Raid Champion, and Heinrich Kemmler, the Lichemaster, is also in the unit. He has the Chaos Tombblade, Skullstaff, Cloak of Mist and Shadows, and the Black Amulet. The Skeleton Warrior unit, the Nightwalkers they have a musician and a standard with the War Banner. Then over here we have Lord Erlich. He is a white lord on a skeleton steed. He has a white blade and a potion of strength. He leads the Tomb Raiders, 9 skeleton horsemen, with lancer, shield, skeleton steeds and the Doom Rider banner. Back there we have 3 chariots, 2 with sides, 1 without, and all the warriors are equipped with just bows. And we have 1 single bat swarm. For Heinrich Kemmler, his spells, at first I had Raise Dead, the Dark Mist, Summon Skeletons and Hand of Dust. 2 of these spells I threw back. Raise Dead because, well, that's pretty much the same as Summon Skeletons. And the Dark Mist because he also has that in his staff. I drew 2 new spells, Van Hels's Dance Macabre and the Curse of Years. End of turn 1, a lot has happened as you can see. The undead started, the skeleton horsemen moved up. They first moved up the hill. I turned the hill around because it was a little bit easier. It was a regular hill, no movement penalty. The chariots were going behind the hill. Then in the magic phase, well, the skeletons also marched up, of course, or moved up. In the magic phase, Kemmler cast Van Hels's Danse Macabre. He did it twice, once on the horsemen, once on the chariots, on the skeleton warriors I mean. Skeleton warriors could march, they stand over here now. The horsemen were standing somewhere over here. Then in the... oh yeah, and I have a bat swarm over here that also moved up the side of the board. Then the dwarves, they repositioned their units a little bit over there so that they could hopefully get a flank charge in once the skeleton horsemen would charge. The crossbows fired at the skeleton warriors. They killed 2 of them. The flame cannon tried to fire at the skeleton warriors and it exploded on the first try. The organ gun fired the first barrel. I fired with all 4 barrels. The first barrel, it fell just short of the unit, and the second barrel was a misfire, resulting in them having to unclog all the barrels and then reload the gun so it can't fire in the next turn. That was a pretty nasty turn for the dwarves, and it was even nastier when in the magic phase Kemmler cast Van Hels's Danse Macabre. The first time it was dispelled, and the second time the dwarves had no dispels left. So the skeleton horsemen charged the dwarf warriors, and now it is the turn for the undead. Undead turn 2. Alright, undead turn 2. The white activated his potion of strength. He caused 1 wound on the dwarf, which was, well, it remained 1 with his white blade, 1 wound on General Odok. The skeleton horseman killed 3 dwarfs and the dwarf battle standard bearer. The dwarfs in return killed 4 of the skeleton horsemen. They won they won by combat results, and that resulted in another 3 of them crumbling. There was no magic for Kemmler. He rolled a 1 for the magic that I still hear. He got a mental jewel, which was not worth anything. The bats, I found out, I had them charged into the organ gun, but instead they only have a movement of 8, a fly movement of 8. So in total they have moved 16 inches up the board, which puts them over there. And the chariots are still trying to go around the hill for a juicy flank charge in those dwarfs. Let's go to dwarf turn 2. Alright, dwarf turn 2. The dwarf unit easily defeated the skeleton horsemen. They won with 7 combat results in the end, causing the undead to crumble. Then the other dwarves, they repositioned themselves a little bit to accept the charge from the skeletons, which came in the subsequent magic phase. The crossbowmen shot at the skeletons, killing 3 of them, but that doesn't really do much harm. So here we go with turn 3 for the undead. End of undead turn 3. The chariots moved up on that side, the bat swarm moved up on this side. Kemmler and his unit attacked the dwarves. They lost combat by 2. The raid champion crumbled as a result of losing combat, but then in the magic phase Kemmler cast the what was it? Van Hels's Danse Macabre, fighting another round, giving him an extra magic card as well. He did 2 wounds on the dwarves, and with that extra magic card he cast Hand of Dust on the hero, resulting in him turning into a raid. So now Kemmler has a raid champion instead of a white champion, and the dwarves are down 1 hero. Now let's go to dwarf turn 3. Dwarf turn 3, end of dwarf turn 3. The organ gun shot 1 of the chariots without misfiring this turn. Well, that was 1 misfire on the bounce, but the other one hit. 2 barrels were fired. The crossbowmen charged the skeletons in the flank, and they did, well, quite a lot of damage. A lot of skeletons have died. I forgot the exact number. The Kemmler got his spell off again, the Dance Macabre, killing 3 more dwarfs in the process, getting some more magic cards, including a total power which he used for Curse of Years on the General's unit. So the General is now dying of old age. And then, yeah, they fought another round of close combat. They are still there holding out. He summoned a few more skeletons back. Now it's Undead turn 4. Undead turn 4. The chariots charged into the unit of dwarves that was there. They completely destroyed that unit. Only the general remained, only Odok remained, but he got then beaten by combat results. He fled and he was overrun by the chariots. Over here, those dwarves suffered some more casualties from hand-to-hand combat. The skeletons did too. Then the crossbowmen fled as a result of the general breaking within 12 inches. The other dwarves stayed where they are. Kemmler then fought another round of combat with Van Hel's Dance Macabre, and in the with resulting magic cards he gained, he cast 2 times summoned skeletons on his own unit, so some of the skeletons that were lost are now back, and the flank attack is now also gone. On to Dwarf turn 4. End of turn 4 for the dwarfs. The skeletons with no flank attack. They easily destroyed the unit that was there. The organ gun shot a few times at the chariots. It misfired on the last one, may not shoot, so it needs 1 turn to reload now. And it killed 1 horse on each chariot with the other 2 shots. Yeah, then in the magic phase, the skeletons that had pursued towards the chariots, they used a Van Hel's Dance Macabre to basically reform, or at least move a little bit, so that they are now facing the dwarfs with the crossbows. On to turn 5 for the undead. Turn 5 for the undead. The skeleton warriors charged the crossbowmen. They were outnumbered, they were afraid, so they had to flee. Then in the magic phase they tried to charge again, and thus they fled right up to the edge of the table. It's now going to be dwarf turn 5. Over here the bat swarm charged the organ gun. Did no wounds on the organ gun, but got 2 wounds from the crew members. And the chariots are over there. Let's see if this turn 5 means that the dwarves rally or not, because if they don't rally, I can pretty much call the game right here. Here we go. Ooh, the dwarves rally. We get another turn. Here we are, end of the game. The dwarves, they rallied in their turn. They almost got charged by the skeletons, but they did not flee, and they could not stand and shoot because the range was too short, but the skeletons didn't make it with Van Hel's Dance Macabre. Here the bat swarm, they had some lucky rolls and they killed all 3 of the crewmen for the organ gun. Then the next turn the skeletons charged the crossbowmen. They lost combat, outnumbering fear-causing enemy. They lost combat by 1 point, and they fled and ran off the table. And that was it, game for the undead. A short post-battle recap. That was a very fun game to play. At first, when those horsemen plowed into those dwarves, I thought that the dwarves were surely the better army. They withstood that charge like a champion, but then the unit with Kemmler is an absolute beast. I hadn't really checked out his stats too much, but 5 weapon skill, was it 6 or 7 strength 5 attacks on a wizard is very very hefty, especially when he has got that blade that gives him extra power cards. He definitely needed them because he was the only wizard, so he needed get those cards to get some of those heavier spells off. Then, yeah, in the end, it was a very decisive victory. I hope I calculated this correctly. You have to calculate the victory points for a unit, which is 1 point for every 100 points or fraction thereof. And I don't know, I calculate my champions separately. If I do that, then it's 23 victory points for the Undead versus 5 for the Dwarfs. That is a very major victory for the Undead. Very fun game, learned lots of things. It was a long time ago that I played 4th edition, so I had to look some things up, especially with Dwarves and Undead. I do love both of those armies, they are very characterful. That flame cannon exploding in turn 1, that was just what you'd expect to happen from an Orc and Goblin player at heart, and a freshly painted unit there, so I did roll a lot of misfires. I also got some shots off with the organ gun, but it didn't really do all that much. I had hoped it would have done more. I probably would not have even destroyed that one chariot that I took out. I forgot to randomize it, but I just assumed it was going to hit the chariot body. So yeah, fun game. Glad to have made this battle report. I hope you enjoyed it. Like the video if you like the video. If you want to see more stuff like this, let me know. You can also subscribe to the Forces of Fantasy Patreon, where you can find the full battle report, including all of the things that happened in between and not just the recap at the end. And while I'm talking about the Forces of Fantasy podcast, also give the podcast a like on your podcast platform of choice. Follow me, and then you can get new episodes whenever they drop. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think, and I will see you again next time with probably another Old World update video or another battle report. Well, we'll just see what the future holds.